Hey everyone, Butch McGoats here. I just wanted to throw another video together because I think I found an interesting idea related to creating ruts in the track or reformed deformation, if you will. It's kind of using one of the techniques I showed earlier with the sign and creating your edge mask with details, but we'll get more into depth in just a second. But take you through a little tour. You can see our track is coming together a little bit so far. The only thing I've added outside of Gaea is just this jump. We talked about adding some of this little dirt patch and stuff to show the demonstration. It kind of raised up the berm a little bit as well. But everything else that you see here has been generated from Gaea, and it's procedurally generated. So we have to make a change, or even if you build a track in the future, you could use this same approach and instantly, have a track. It has a lot of details or kind of deformation on it already. And it's actually not too hard. The concept's pretty simple. So let's get into that right now. Um, I think where we left off last time was we created a combine node. Let me just take a look at these. Yeah, we created a combine node that added this rock deformation or buildup, I'll call it, to the edge of the track. And that's using the rock noise. I like to use this a lot for different stuff just because it kind of adds some different rock or noise, if you will. And it's pretty simple in terms of just setting the properties on that. So I do want to use this again in the next thing that I'm about to show. But yeah, just a little recap. We used the layout mask to essentially create a sign node that will outline our track. We used the rock noise to create a little edge. We added some erosion in, and then we added all of that back onto our track so that we have that sitting on the track edge now. So similarly, I'm going to start with the layout mask. And I like to move this actually over to another node because I like to keep this pretty small. You're going to want to reduce the shape to about a minus 100% for this one. So once you have your layout mask shrunk a little bit more, we're going to do the sign option or node one more time. And I just crank that up to 100%. And you'll see you have it, lower. It's going to kind of reduce the reflectance there. Having it up to about 100% is going to give you a lot of those tinier uh, indentations or lines, if you will. And with that, I like to set the property to auto level. I like to clip it. I think we should talk about this a little bit to make everything else black and keep everything a little bit lighter. And then I also like to shape this. About the shape, it kind of doesn't really pop as much. So I want to make sure that I increase the shape so that uh, we get as much of that white material coming through or white texture coming through on this node. Then the next thing that we want to do is you'll see we've actually just kind of placed it into a bunch of different displaced nodes. Uh, don't pay attention too much to how I've organized the combines right now, but really all I've done is just taken this sign node, I've displaced it to essentially move it around, kind of rearrange the lines, if you will. And you have a lot of control. You can do standard, vertical, rugged. You can change the strength, change the complexity, and you'll see on some of these I do reduce the strength, I do reduce the complexity, the scale, just to kind of vary it up. And then for each of those displace nodes, I want to make sure that we're only displacing the texture that is in the mask. Okay. So when you displace it without a mask, it really moves the map around or moves the mask around. And so when you just kind of throw that back in there, you can see it sort of cuts off certain spots. That's okay. If you don't like that, you can kind of move around the scale and the complexity and the strength, and you might get, the look that you're going for. But yeah, I just figure it's easier to kind of take the displaced node and just kind of do this multiple times. It's really not too much work to do that. And I have about 6 displaced nodes for this tutorial. I think that's a pretty good amount, personally. I've shown this to some other people in the past, or mainly Jeff, Bunker Jeffy, and he kind of agrees that this should be a little bit tinier in terms of how much erosion this gives. It'll make sense in a second what I'm saying, but yeah, these are all just displaced nodes coming from the same sine wave or sine node. And then I just combine them all together using the screen at 100%. So once you have them all combined together and just down into one node, it's going to end up looking something like this. Okay. Um, Another thing too we don't need to worry about is you can kind of wait until the very end. You're going to auto level that out, and then we can also take the clamp just for fun off. So yeah, at this point, we've got our, oops, moved a little too fast on Gaea. So we've got our mask built, and then you can kind of see, like, it gives us some interesting lines or textures. Again, you can play with it. You can decide if it doesn't look good enough for you, or, this line doesn't look right. I think a lot of that can be fixed with reducing the strength and the complexity and all of the things within these displaced nodes to really kind of match the look that you're going for. But you have a lot of control, and you can experiment and just kind of keep tweaking it over and over, and it will fit right into your track once we're all done. So yeah, here's the combine node where we've combined them all. We're going to come back and we're going to take our blur node, and I just blurred it down with a 2. And then this is kind of something you need to experiment with, okay? I think what really helps kind of make the ruts feel a little bit more ruddy and not so, I don't have a better word for it, but like bubbly, is to kind of change the shape around a little bit. It's good to have a sharp spike in the white, good strong presence in the white. But I would look for, a smooth fall off with the gradient, so that when we put the ruts in, or when we add some of this additional material, it will smooth off or fall off a little bit easier. If it's too sharp, if the white is too sharp, like for example, if I take off this shape, that's a little too sharp. It's a little too exposed, if you will. And so I kind of dialed it back with the shaper. And then in sort of opposite, I raised it as well. So, in Photoshop, when you get used to kind of playing with the levels, I think the shaping and the raising will make a lot of sense to how, Photoshop changes the white and the dark, or I'm sorry, the white and the black, when you adjust those scales. So, the look, yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to say about that. What you're looking for is just a nice little fall off, but a pretty good strong presence of the white color there. So once you have this in place, you can kind of take a look, right? Start seeing the erosion, or the mask taking form. And then what we want next is to add some rock noise to it. I had to play around with this a bunch by changing up the size, messing with the density, even increasing the shape to 100%. And again, this is very dependent on how much you changed in this last node that I talked about. So yeah, I just kind of found a good happy medium where, I put a lot of the fall off and smoothness into my mask, and then I decided just to crank the shape up when it came to the rock noise. And I just used 1 octave, size of 10, max density, because I kind of want the rocks to be pushing up the terrain as much as it can everywhere. But I think it turned out really good, pretty interesting if you ask me. For something that I literally didn't have to put my hand on at all, figure out. It's got some pretty promising results here. So we'll take that. We'll erode it a little bit more. I didn't actually erode it much at all in this case. I changed the duration to about 4%, which is pretty short. Strength is at 10, and then the down cutting. Oh, and that's probably one reason why it's not very strong. But the down cutting is at 3% now. And then that'll just kind of add some texture to it. And then I kind of went back and blurred it some more. Excuse me. So again, yeah, this is just, something that you can play with again some more and just add some blur to, change how much you want those ruts to blur down. You can kind of keep doing ruts over and over, maybe have some that are smooth, maybe some that are more peaky and sharp. But I think, where I like to have this, or where I'm going to like to have this at, is about 2 for now. So we blurred that down. We blurred that down here. And then, yeah, just like we did with our rock node before, we combine it, or with the edge map, we combine it with 100% add to our map. And then now you can see that we've got some ruts and just some berms that are procedurally generated into the terrain, just kind of using that technique. Another really cool feature, I think, about Gaea, you can come in here as well. We could add a mask. And let's say, for example, we want to add those ruts everywhere. And we have these ruts added everywhere. Um, and then what I would like to show is how we can just come in here real fast and say, hey, let's not have them in, spots that they probably wouldn't be. For example, come in here and just type them out from here. Power down, editor, and you can kind of see it removes some of the ruts from that spot. And again, I'll just, increase the power even more. Go there, and you can see it's like, you don't blend it, probably isn't going to look that great, but 0.5 might be good enough. Back to combine. Yeah, I mean, I put in some ruts, and then I could just add a mask to take them out where I don't want them. Again, just I think it's really cool, and you can use this over and over for different tracks if you want, and it will quickly kind of generate some paths. There's things that we could probably experiment, from a community standpoint, and try to figure out how to add, smaller ruts or maybe more ruts so that it's not just 2 or 3. That's kind of about how many I've been able to fit or figure out when it comes to that. But yeah, I have a good feeling that we can kind of straighten a lot of this out and make them look really nice in the future. So that's all. Have a good one.